Coming live from the Tivoli Met Radio studio here on Auraria campus, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for listening to All Sports through Met Radio on mymetmedia.com, live every Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. This is your host, Gerardo, and all I talk is sports. On the show today, I'm going to talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, Nhl Hockey, college football, and college basketball. So before I start the show, I hope y'all had a great week. I'm glad to finally be back in the Tivoli Met Radio studio here on Auraria campus. I did have a great Christmas and New Year's. 2018 was a great year for your host Gerardo and for All Sports with Gerardo. So I hope 2019 is another great year for me and for All Sports with Gerardo. During the holidays, I was still doing episodes of All Sports, so if you missed any episodes of All Sports this last month, you can go to my YouTube page at All Sports with Gerardo and view my shows from the past. To start off with some Major League Baseball, David Robertson and the Phillies have agreed to a 2-year contract. Zach Britton is returning back to the Yankees. Troy Tulowitzki has officially joined the Yankees. Yasmani Grandal and the Brewers have agreed to a 1-year contract. Brian Dozier and the Nationals have agreed to a 1-year contract. So now that we're in 2019 here in January, the remaining big-name free agents should start making their decision of what teams they're going to sign with, especially Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. Their decision should be coming up this month, so we're just going to have to wait and see what other teams all these other free agents are going to sign with, but it's definitely going to be interesting from now up until the beginning of spring training when pitchers and catchers and the remaining of the team have to report in late February. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NFL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NFL football. The Steelers are expected to consider and listen to trade offers for wide receiver Antonio Brown. We're just going to have to wait and see, but there has been multiple reports that Antonio Brown has requested a trade out of Pittsburgh, but there's also been other reports that the Steelers have not requested to trade Antonio Brown. So it's a back and forth situation, and there's also been other reports that there's also tension within the organization between head coach Mike Tomlin, quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, and wide receiver Antonio Brown. So it'll be an ongoing situation for the next few weeks. There had also been rumors that the Broncos are going to explore all of their options this offseason with the current players on the team, who they can get in free agency or in the draft. So the Broncos could possibly make a big move this offseason. We're going to have to wait and see what it is in case they do. After the Broncos fired head coach Vance Joseph, this week and last week, the Broncos have interviewed possible candidates to become their next head coach. They interviewed 5 different candidates, and earlier this week, they finally did make their decision. The Broncos, Packers, Bengals, Browns, Buccaneers, Cardinals, Dolphins, and Jets have also been interviewing possible candidates to become their next head coach. Many of the candidates were previous head coaches last season, so the coaches that got fired from these 8 teams were getting hired by other teams that were in need of a head coach after they let go of their previous head coach. So many of them have gotten a different job as a head coach for another team or a different position on another team. The Broncos are going to hire former Bears defensive coordinator Vic Vanadu to be their next head coach. They actually had the press conference earlier on Thursday afternoon to introduce him to the Broncos. So I'm definitely looking forward to the next Broncos head coach. He's the 17th head coach in franchise history, and John Elway looks like he did make the right decision, and he should be a great head coach. He has a defensive mind, so he should make our defense a lot better than what it was the last few years. After winning Super Bowl 50, and with having Von Miller and now Bradley Chubb on both sides, our defense should play a lot better in 2019. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with the Broncos. There's definitely a lot of decisions to be made, coaching-wise, and with current players on the team and who they might bring in during free agency or in this year's draft. So we're going to have to wait and see, but the future does look bright for the Broncos, and I definitely could see the Broncos making it back into the playoffs in 2019 and possibly into the Super Bowl in the next few years. The Packers are going to hire former Titans offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur to be their next head coach. The Buccaneers are going to hire Bruce Arians to be their next head coach. Bruce Arians decided to come out of retirement after being out of the NFL for the last year. The Cardinals are going to hire former head coach at Texas Tech and offensive coordinator at USC, Cliff Kingsbury, to be their next head coach. This is a great move for the Cardinals, with the Cardinals having a young rookie quarterback, Josh Rosen. Cliff Kingsbury has also been known for the development of Patrick Mahomes. As we all know, Patrick Mahomes has been a great quarterback for the Chiefs, and especially in the NFL. Also, the development of Case Keenum and Heisman Trophy winner Johnny Manziel. This can definitely be a great head coach for the Cardinals, and they definitely have a bright future, and Josh Rosen looks like he could become a better quarterback in 2019 and beyond. The Browns are going to hire interim offensive coordinator Freddie Kitchens to be their next head coach. The Jets are going to hire former Dolphins head coach Adam Gase to be their next head coach. The Buccaneers are going to hire former Jets head coach Todd Bowles to be their new defensive coordinator. The Falcons are going to hire former Buccaneers head coach Dirk Koetter to be their new offensive coordinator. The Bengals and Dolphins are the only two teams left searching for their next head coach. Former Packers head coach Mike McCarthy is expected to not coach an NFL team in 2019, but he is expected to return back to the NFL as a head coach in 2020. For Ravens rookie quarterback Lamar Jackson, there were 4 rookie quarterbacks drafted ahead of him since he was the 32nd pick and the last player to be selected in the first round of the 2018 NFL Draft. He won the starting job over Joe Flacco in Week 11 since the Ravens were 4-5 at the time. The Ravens went 6-1 after Week 11. The Ravens won the AFC North and they clinched a playoff berth. He was the only first-round quarterback to make it into the playoffs this year, and he was the youngest quarterback to start a playoff game since he is only 21 years old. Broncos owner Pat Bowlen, Champ Bailey, Steve Atwater, John Lynch, Tony Gonzalez, Ed Reed, Isaac Bruce, Ingram James, Tony Brosil, Alan Fletcher, Steve Hitchinson, Kevin Malway, Tom Flores, Don Corwell, Richard Seymour, and Ty Law were named finalists for the 2019 Pro Football Hall of Fame. This is the 6th year in a row John Lynch has been named a finalist. This is the first year Champ Bailey is eligible and he has been named a finalist. So these are some great names that can be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2019. Looking at these names, Broncos owner Pat Bowlen should definitely get into the Hall of Fame. Champ Bailey should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Steve Atwater should have his turn to get into the Hall of Fame. John Lynch would have a strong case, and he's also the 49ers general manager now. Tony Gonzalez should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Ed Reed should definitely be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So those are just some of the names, but those are the names that I'm expecting to be inducted into this year's Hall of Fame, especially Pat Bowlen, Champ Bailey, Tony Gonzalez, and Ed Reed. They should definitely be first ballot Hall of Famers. There's no question about it. Looking at their career, they all had a great career. Phillip Lindsey was named 2018 Colorado Professional Athlete of the Year. Phillip Lindsey is up for NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Phillip Lindsey is also heading to the Pro Bowl this year as a social media correspondent. Since Phillip Lindsey got injured towards the end of the 2018 regular season. He was expected to be out for the next few months recovering from a wrist injury, and since that was to occur, the Pro Bowl said that he wouldn't be able to participate in the Pro Bowl and they weren't going to pay his way. But because of how great of a season Phillip Lindsey had, they couldn't just throw him to the curb and leave him at home, so they decided to give him another role so he could participate in the Pro Bowl festivities. So congrats to Phillip Lindsey on having a great 2018 season, and I can't wait to see you in 2019, and hopefully you win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. You would definitely deserve to win this award. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the rest of the NFL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now. Right now I'm going to give you the final scores from Wild Card Weekend, and then I'm going to get into the highlights from this week of football. In the Wild Card Weekend, the Colts beat the Texans 21-7. The Cowboys beat the Seahawks 24-22. The Chargers beat the Ravens 23-17, and the Eagles beat the Bears 16-15. So the highlights from this week of football: the Colts have been playing some great football lately, especially towards the end of the regular season. So now going into the playoffs, they're definitely one of the teams you need to watch in the AFC. Andrew Luck had a great game against the Texans, and they're able to score a lot of points right now. So you better watch out for the Colts in the Divisional Weekend. For the Texans, they had a lot of injuries on the offensive side, and they didn't play that great football. This was the third meeting between the Colts and the Texans, since they're both in the AFC South and they're divisional teams. So this was another divisional matchup for them. And the Texans, with them being without some of their wide receivers, especially Demaryius Thomas and some other people on the offensive side, Deshaun Watson could really only throw to DeAndre Hopkins, so that was really his only option, and they just weren't able to put up points to be able to keep this a close game and have the opportunity of winning this game. In the Cowboys-Seahawks game, this was a very close game. This came down to the end. Both teams played really good. It was expected that the Cowboys were going to win this game since it was at home in Dallas. The Cowboys landed up beating the Seahawks towards the end of the game. This was a very close game throughout the game, and it came down to the very end. For most of the game, the Seahawks were winning this game. The Cowboys were able to come back and beat the Seahawks by 2 points. In the Chargers-Ravens game, this time the Chargers went on the road to Baltimore. And the last time the Chargers and Ravens played each other, the Ravens went on the road to Los Angeles. So the first time, the Ravens landed up beating the Chargers in Los Angeles, but this time around in the playoffs, the Chargers were able to go on the road to Baltimore and beat the Ravens. For the Chargers, Phillip Rivers definitely had a great game. The Chargers played some great football. Also, looking at the Chargers' record, when they go on the road, they play their best football. They've been undefeated. They've been hard to beat on the road. But when they played in Los Angeles, they have lost a couple of their games there. So it was good that the Chargers were able to go on the road and beat the Ravens this time. And one of the best games from Wild Card Weekend was the Eagles-Bears game. The Eagles landed up winning this game by 1 point. I was expecting for the Bears to win this game because it was at home in Chicago. They played some really good football throughout the year. I personally saw the Bears going to the Nfc Championship game, and this should have been a game that they won. But both the Eagles and the Bears really didn't score a whole lot of points throughout this game. And this game came down to the final minute. The Eagles landed up scoring, and then the Bears scored. But then the kicker for the Bears, all he had to do was make the extra point to tie up the game and send this game into overtime. But believe it or not, he missed the kick, and the Bears landed up losing this game by 1 point, and the Eagles ended up moving on, but the Bears likely should have won this game. But for the Bears kicker, he has missed some other kicks like this throughout the regular season, so he's definitely missed these easy kicks many times throughout his career, but especially this season. So now looking at these teams in Wild Card Weekend, the Colts definitely have the potential of making it to the AFC Championship game. The Texans, I didn't really expect them to make it that far in the AFC. The Cowboys, I was expecting them to at least make it to the divisional round. The Seahawks would have had a good chance to make it pretty far into the playoffs as well. They had a pretty great team, but they just couldn't beat the Cowboys at the end of the game. The Chargers, this is one of the teams in the AFC that I could see getting to the Super Bowl. They definitely have a very good chance, especially with quarterback Phillip Rivers. So we're going to have to wait and see what the Chargers do. They play their best football on the road. They're undefeated, so they got a great chance of making it to the big game. The Ravens season looked like it was going to be a losing season for the Ravens, but they landed up turning it around after benching Joe Flacco and putting in rookie quarterback Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson definitely had a great season for the Ravens, but it did end in Wild Card Weekend, but they definitely have a lot of potential going into next year and into the future. The Eagles got very lucky to even make it into the playoffs. For most of the season, it looked like they weren't going to do anything. The reason why they got into the playoffs was they landed up winning their final game. The Vikings were holding on to the last wild card spot and the last playoff spot in the NFC. Since the Vikings lost and the Eagles won, that's how they slid in. And from switching from quarterback Carson Wentz to backup quarterback Nick Flores, they definitely didn't have a problem at winning games when they needed to. For the Bears, they definitely had a great season. They were a big surprise. After making that trade to get Khalil Mack, it definitely made the Bears defense a lot better. It really turned the Bears around too, because they had a great season. They landed up winning their division, making it into the playoffs, but I really expected the Bears to make it at least to the NFC Championship game, but their season ended in Wild Card Weekend because of the kicker missing that kick. But the Bears definitely have a lot of potential going into next season and beyond, so watch out for the Bears in the NFC. So that's the highlights from Wild Card Weekend. Right now I'm going to tell you what teams go up against each other in the Divisional Weekend. In the Divisional Weekend in the AFC, the Colts go against the Chiefs and the Chargers go against the Patriots. And in the NFC, the Eagles go against the Saints and the Cowboys go against the Rams. So what to watch for this week in football? The Colts can go into Kansas City, like I was saying, since they've been playing some great football towards the end of the regular season, and they can land up going and beating the Chiefs in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium. So the Chiefs better watch out for the Colts. The Chiefs haven't made because they are the number one seed in the AFC, so they got the home field advantage. All they got to do is win games and they should be in the Super Bowl. If they can't even win at home against the Colts, then that's pretty bad. But the Chiefs looked like they were such a great team and they were going to be hard to beat throughout the regular season. But once it got to December, it looked like, well, anyone could beat the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes definitely has had a great season for the Chiefs. He should be MVP of the NFL because of the 50 touchdowns he threw in the regular season, and he just had a great season overall. So the Chiefs haven't made. All they got to do is win games. If they can't beat the Colts, then that's too bad, because they have one of the easiest paths to make it all the way to the Super Bowl, and they are expected to get there, but they got to win first. And the Chiefs have a really bad record in the playoffs of not being able to win games, whether they're in Kansas City or on the road. For the Chargers, another great team as well. They should make it all the way to the Super Bowl. They got a very good chance. Phillip Rivers definitely has one of the best Chargers teams throughout his career with the Chargers, so they can make it pretty far. And like I was saying, they're undefeated on the road. They're very hard to beat when this team goes on the road, so watch out for the Chargers. And for the Patriots, well, they get into the playoffs every year. All they got to do is win at home and they can make it to the Super Bowl too. But the Patriots look like they're a team that can be beatable as well. So this time around, between the Chargers and the Patriots, the Chargers could end up winning this game. But looking at the AFC, it's a wide open competition, and I could definitely see the Chiefs, the Chargers, or the Patriots making it into the Super Bowl. The Chiefs is definitely the favorite, but a lot of these teams are beatable in the AFC. Now in the NFC, the Eagles are looking like they want to go back-to-back at winning the Super Bowl. They were Super Bowl 52 champions last year, so could they win Super Bowl 53 and win back-to-back Super Bowls? We're going to have to wait and see, but even with them being without Carson Wentz and having to put in Nick Foles, they're definitely still a great team. I'd definitely keep an eye on them, but they do play the number one team in the NFC and one of the best teams in the NFL. So looking at the Saints, they're the number one seed in the NFC. They have home field advantage. They got the easiest path. All the games are going to go through New Orleans. If the Saints happen to make it to the Super Bowl, all the Saints got to do is win 2 games and they're in the Super Bowl, and they're both home games. So the Saints are definitely the favorite to get to the Super Bowl in the NFC. So keep an eye out on them. Drew Brees has definitely had a record-breaking season. He's broken a lot of records. He's definitely one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL. So this could be another season that the Saints make it to the Super Bowl, and Drew Brees can add another Super Bowl to his Hall of Fame resume. So hopefully Drew Brees can win his second Super Bowl in his career. We're going to have to wait and see. The Cowboys landed up making it into the playoffs and winning their division. For most of the season, it looked like the Redskins were going to win their division and get into the playoffs. But because the Redskins lost quarterback Alex Smith to a season-ending injury, the NFC East was basically a wide-open competition, and the Cowboys just started winning games and playing better football. They made that trade for Amari Cooper. That helped Dak Prescott. They started playing better on the offense and on the defense, so they were able to win that division and get into the playoffs. So keep an eye out on the Cowboys. For the Rams, they've definitely had a great season this whole year. This could be another team. If they play great football and win games, they can make it to the Super Bowl too. And looking at the NFC Championship should be between the Saints and the Rams. So all the Rams got to do is beat the Cowboys, and the Cowboys is definitely a winnable game for the Rams. They definitely had a great season as well, so keep an eye out on the Rams. So that's what's to watch for this week in football. Now my predictions is, for the AFC, the Chiefs will go against the Chargers in the AFC Championship game. This would be another AFC West divisional matchup, but now in the playoffs in the AFC Championship game, that would be a great championship game. In the NFC, I'm expecting the Saints and the Rams to go against each other in the NFC Championship. My prediction is, in the Super Bowl, the Chargers go against the Saints, but I'm expecting the Saints to be in the Super Bowl and to especially come out of the NFC, and the Saints should win the Super Bowl this year. Super Bowl 53 is in Atlanta, Georgia at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And the Saints should definitely be there, and they should definitely win Super Bowl 53. They're one of the best teams in the NFL, and they definitely have the team and the talent to get to that big game and to win that big game as well. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens in the playoffs for these next few weeks. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NBA and NHL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NBA basketball. Dwyane Wade has joined Elite Company since he is the third player in NBA history with at least 20,000 points, 5,000 assists, 4,000 rebounds, 1,500 steals, 800 blocks, and 500 three-point field goals made. This is Dwyane Wade's last season and his one last dance in the NBA. So Dwyane Wade has definitely had a great career in the NBA, and I'm definitely looking forward to the last few months of the NBA regular season and being able to watch Dwyane Wade for one last season. So congrats to Dwyane Wade on having a great season and for having a great career in the NBA. And you're definitely going to make it into the NBA Hall of Fame once you retire. The Lakers have been without LeBron James since Christmas, when he had to come out of the Lakers-Warriors game with a groin injury. This has affected the Lakers' current record in the way they are playing in games. LeBron's status is game to game, but he's expected to be reevaluated in the next week to see when he can return back to the court. Then the Lakers should start winning more games again and climb back into the top 8 in the Western Conference, since they have dropped in the top 8 of the Western Conference these last few weeks. Tony Parker moved into 17 in all-time assists. The Timberwolves have fired president and head coach Tom Thibodeau. Right now I'm going to give you the current NBA standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. So to start off in the Eastern Conference, at number 1 is the Milwaukee Bucks, and number 2 is the Toronto Raptors, and number 3 is the Indiana Pacers, and number 4 is the Philadelphia 76ers, and number 5 is the Boston Celtics, and number 6 is the Brooklyn Nets, and number 7 is the Miami Heat, and at number 8 is the Charlotte Hornets. Looking at the Eastern Conference, the Bucks have been able to move into the first spot, and they've been playing some great basketball, especially with their MVP candidate Giannis. The Raptors have been playing great basketball the whole season. The Pacers is a team that a lot of people don't talk about, but definitely keep an eye out on them because they've been playing some great basketball lately. 76ers have also been up on that race as well. The Celtics are starting to climb back into the race. Since it's Dwyane Wade's one last dance this season, the Heat would definitely like to make it into the playoffs for Dwyane Wade and give Dwyane Wade another shot at the playoffs and potentially the NBA Finals. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how the Heat play for the rest of the season, but they've definitely been playing some great basketball lately, so keep an eye out on them. But there's still a lot of basketball left to be played in the NBA. In the Western Conference, at number 1 is the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets have been holding on to this spot for the last few weeks of 2018 and now into 2019. The Nuggets is definitely one team you need to keep an eye out on. Of course, the NBA doesn't really talk about them, but they're definitely a team that has a lot of young talent, despite the injuries that they've had to their starters and even the other players that are currently not playing or haven't played this season, like Michael Porter Jr. and Isaiah Thomas. The Nuggets have been playing some great basketball. Even when Gary Harris was out for a few weeks, Paul Millsap, they're still without Will Barton since the beginning of the season. So if this team was healthy, this team would probably not be beatable. Having everybody healthy, everybody can play on the court. The Nuggets bench has really stepped up their game. They've been able to score a lot of points. The starters are great. Jamal Murray is a great point guard. Nikola Jokic has been having a great season. He's already had a lot of triple-doubles this season as well. So the Nuggets is a young team. We knew the Nuggets had young talent and they had a lot of potential going into the next few years, but no one really expected it to be this soon. So keep an eye out on the Nuggets because they've definitely been a surprise to the NBA so far, and they're going to do a lot going into the future. And they should definitely make it into the playoffs this year and not miss it like they've had the last few years. So keep an eye out on the Nuggets. If you have, go out to the Pepsi Center because they've been playing some great basketball here in Denver. They have a great home record. They could play a little bit better out on the road, but definitely support the Nuggets. They have a long homestand coming up this next week, which includes the Golden State Warriors. So if you can make it out to the Warriors game, that's definitely going to be a great game. The Nuggets and the Warriors are right behind each other, and they're the top 2 teams in the Western Conference right now. So go check out these Nuggets in their next homestand because they definitely got a lot of games in the next 2 weeks. Number 2 is the Golden State Warriors, and number 3 is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and number 4 is the Los Angeles Clippers. At number 5 is the Portland Trail Blazers. At number 6 is the Houston Rockets. At number 7 is the San Antonio Spurs. And at number 8 is the Los Angeles Lakers. So that's the current top 8 teams in the Western Conference right now. Looking at the Western Conference, the Warriors are always a great team. They've been playing great basketball lately, so you need to keep an eye out on them like we've had the last few years. The Thunder have been playing great basketball. They didn't start out the season great, but they've definitely been playing great so far, especially with Paul George. The Clippers have definitely been a surprise in the Western Conference and in the NBA. Trailblazers are playing great. The Rockets have been winning games lately. At the beginning of the season, they weren't even in the top 8 of the Western Conference and they fell out. But in the last few weeks, the Rockets have been able to climb out of the bottom of the Western Conference and get back into the top 8 of the Western Conference. They have another MVP candidate, James Harden. James Harden's definitely one of the best players in the NBA right now. What that guy can do on the court is amazing. How he can score. There's really not a better shooter right now in the NBA than James Harden, so you definitely need to watch him. The Lakers kind of fell down in the top 8 because LeBron James is out with that groin injury, but they have been holding on to the last spot of the top 8 in the Western Conference, and the Lakers are expected to get LeBron James back in the next few games, so once they get him back, they should definitely climb back up in the top 8. Before LeBron got injured, they were in the top 4. So I would expect them to get back up there once LeBron's back and they start winning games again. So that's the current top 8 teams in the Western Conference. And that's also the current standings in the Eastern and Western Conference of the NBA. And there's definitely a lot of basketball left to be played. We're in the middle of the NBA season and we're approaching the All-Star festivities in the next month. So if you haven't, go out and vote your favorite players or the best players in the NBA that deserve to be in the All-Star game and the other festivities as well. In the Week 13 NBA Power Rankings, the current top 10 NBA basketball teams are the Bucks, Warriors, Raptors, Nuggets, Pacers, Rockets, Thunder, 76ers, Celtics, and Spurs. Moving on now to NHL hockey. The NHL announced there will be 3 outdoor hockey games during the 2019-2020 regular season. The Avalanche will host the 2020 Stadium Series in Colorado Springs. The Avalanche will play at Falcon Stadium on February 15, 2020 in Colorado Springs at the U.S. Air Force Academy. That should definitely be a great game. The Avalanche's opponent, time of game, and when tickets go on sale will be announced at a later date. The NHL announced the 2019 Heritage Classic. The outdoor game in Canada will feature the Calgary Flames and the Winnipeg Jets at Muskog Stadium in Canada on October 26, 2019. The next NHL Winter Classic will be held at Cotton Bowl Stadium in Dallas on January 1st, 2020. The Dallas Stars are the host, but no opponent was announced. The NHL also announced that St. Louis will host the 2020 NHL All-Star Weekend from January 24 to 26. It will be the 3rd time the Blues have hosted the NHL All-Star activities. Right now I'm going to give you the current NHL standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. In the NHL, the division standings go off the amount of goals the team scored, not by the wins or losses by the team. So to start off in the Eastern Conference, in the Metropolitan Division, right now Washington is leading this division at 56 points. And Pittsburgh's right behind them at 54 points. In the Atlantic Division, right now Tampa Bay is leading this division at 68 points. The next closest team to catch up to Tampa Bay is Toronto, but nobody else is looking like they're going to catch up to Tampa Bay since Tampa Bay does have a big lead in the division. In the Western Conference, in the Central Division, right now Nashville's leading this division at 57 points. And Winnipeg's right behind them at 56 points. In the Pacific Division, right now, Calgary is leading this division at 60 points. And Vegas is right behind them at 58 points. So that's the current standings in the Eastern and Western Conference in the NHL. Right now, I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about college football, college basketball, and the end of the show. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to college football. The Clemson Tigers are the 2019 College Football Playoff National Champions. This is Clemson's second national championship in 3 years. Number 2 Clemson beat number 1 Alabama 44-16 in the College Football Playoff National Championship game last Monday at Levi's Stadium. Clemson is the first major college football team to go 15-0 since 1897. Clemson's quarterback Trevor Lawrence was named the offensive MVP since he had 3 touchdowns and 347 passing yards. Trayvon Mullen was named the defensive MVP since he had 1 interception and 6 total tackles. For Clemson, this was a high scoring and a great game for them. So they had the potential of winning another national championship with their freshman quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's going to be a great quarterback in college, and if he were to get to the NFL, he would definitely be a franchise quarterback for an NFL team. For Alabama, this was Nick Saban's largest loss at Alabama as their head coach. The odds to win the 2020 national championship: Clemson 7-4 and Alabama 5-2. These are 2 of the college football teams that are the favorites, and they are expected to make it to the national championship game. And there could be another rematch between the 2 teams next year, since both teams have met in the national championship game in 2015, 2016, and 2018. Clemson and Alabama are 2 of the best teams in college football right now. Former Broncos and Cardinals quarterback Jake Plummer was elected to the College Football 2019 Hall of Fame class. Moving on now to college basketball. In the men's college basketball AP Top 10 poll, the current top 10 college basketball teams are Duke, Michigan, Tennessee, Virginia, Gonzaga, Michigan State, Kansas, Texas Tech, Virginia Tech, and Nevada. Moving on now to end the show. What to watch for this week in sports? The NFL playoffs this weekend with the AFC and NFC divisional games. Divisional weekend in the AFC, the Colts go against the Chiefs and the Chargers go against the Patriots. And in the NFC, the Eagles go against the Saints and the Cowboys go against the Rams. These are all going to be great games, so we're just going to have to wait and see who wins. NBA basketball, the Nuggets. The Nuggets have been playing great basketball lately. Just like I was saying, if you get the opportunity, go out to the Pepsi Center and see the Nuggets. They have a long homestand coming up this next week, which includes the Golden State Warriors. College basketball. Moving on now, on the next show, I will talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, and college basketball. I hope you all have a great weekend. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to All Sports through Met Radio here on mymetmedia.com. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.